This podcast is a quest for well-being, a quest for a meaningful life through the exploration of fundamental truth. Enlightening ideas, insights on physical, mental, and spiritual health. The inspiration is love. The aspiration is to awaken new ways of thinking that can lead us to a new way of being well. Welcome to Body, Mind, and Soul Healing Conversations.
On a cold and cozy December night in 2018, Jim Cavey thinks he is dying. He is a husband, a father, a business owner, an athlete, an innovator. He is also an Afib patient facing massive cardiac trauma. In his memoir, Unlimited Heart, How to Transform Your Pain into Purpose, Jim Cavey recounts his dance with death and the events of his life leading up to this fateful, health-defining moment, and the shifts in business perspective and priorities that followed. Unlimited Heart takes readers on a 3-part, 40-year journey. It traverses the tight budgets of an 11-member household to the financial burden strapped to a dream to the sale of a multi-million-dollar startup. It is a raw portrayal of a boy who grapples with his own demons in the myths of his dreams, and a man who turns those dreams into a clear entrepreneurial vision. A vision that is threatened by medicine, technology, and surgeries. Kaveney's entrepreneurial and cardiac journey cannot be separated. Where his heart was weak, his mind became strong. When his mind was weak, his heart was strong. His battle between his metaphorical and physical heart and mind is what inspired him to write Unlimited Heart and to launch a business with the namesake. Turning his pain in life to a greater purpose, Unlimited Heart helps people with cardiac issues be different and better patients. Valeria interviews Jim Cavey. He is the author of Unlimited Heart, How to Transform Your Pain into Purpose. Jim Cavey is all heart. In 2012, Jim founded Alchemy Partners, a life sciences learning and performance company that was ranked by Inc. 5000 in 2019 and 2020, before achieving acquisition in 2020 by Eversana. He is currently the founder of Unlimited Heart Health and Wellness, a collaborative organization of healthcare professionals and accelerating cardiac innovation. After years of balancing entrepreneurial ambitions with his growing cardiac issues, Jim Cavey, MS, has turned his pain into a purpose to become an expert in navigating the burgeoning worlds of digital therapeutics, global startup initiatives, and the mindset training required to tackle the pillars of a holistic work, health, faith, family life balance. Growing up as the youngest of 9 in Erie, Pennsylvania, he sought understanding and solace in forces greater than himself, a quest that has influenced his personal and professional journey. Through his story, he hopes to empower others to find strength and resilience in the face of health challenges, while continuing to innovate and advocate for better patient care solutions. Meet Jim at unlimitedheartbook.com and connect with him on LinkedIn at James Cavey. Here is the interview with Jim Cavey.
In your own words, who is Jim Cavey?
Yeah, well, thank you, Valeria, for having me today. And I think in my own words, as I most say to people, if you get to know my family and my friends, then you'll know who I am. And, I'm a husband first, father second, and brother, uncle, all those great things that come along with me. For me, being connected with people, predominantly the circle of friends that I've chosen, and the family that I've chosen, and the family that I've been born into, is very important to me. So that's who I am. As I'm a family man, somebody also, personally, as I'm exceptionally curious. Ever since the day that I think I was born, I always looked at things differently. Wanting to understand whether or not there was a way to make the wheel a little bit different, a little bit better. And so that's the lens in which I look at the world right now. And that's what's driving me to continue to do what I'm doing.
Yes, it sounds wonderful to me. Everything that you're doing, it's inspiring though, and it inspires us to look deeper into our own lives and kind of look for that way of living that can create meaning. Although I always go beyond even meaning in the sense because I love spirituality. That's the lens which I look at the world and myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that there's a piece with you too about faith. So I'll be asking that question in a moment.
Great.
So before that, you mentioned family man. I love that way you speak of being a family person. What makes, let's say, a good family man? It's almost beyond good, really, to me. But what made you who you are, this beautiful family man?
Yeah, well, I mean, it all starts with my mom and my dad,
Yeah.
and we are, we'll touch upon faith, but we're Irish Catholic. So
Wow.
I'm the youngest of
Mhm.
9.
Yes.
So we grew up in a large family, and my parents firmly believed that faith was number one, family was number 2, and education is what would get us out of all the problems in the world if we just followed all of those. And so my folks instilled in us what we affectionately call in our family the Kaveney work ethic. It's one in which is if you're pursuing excellence, then you do it 100%. If you fail, that's okay. It's a learning experience, and then you just pick yourself back up again and go do it again. And it was
Wow.
the really out of the challenges that my parents both faced when they were growing up that I firmly saw how important it was to stay connected with family. My mom lost her parents at the age of 14, both of them, tragically. And so she raised herself with her 5 siblings. And this was at the time of the Depression, so they overcame all the odds. And my mom, I affectionately state, was probably created the women's movement before there was a women's movement.
Wow.
But she, both of them were just so inspirational to us to show us the value of sticking together with family and going from there. So for me, that's what ultimately has created me into be who I want to be, because I want to teach my children the value of that connectedness and the importance of our familial culture and what it means and how that culture can ultimately impact the world around us.
Yes. Wow. That's a beautiful, it's almost like a guideline for a healthy life. One that most of us, or maybe some of us, have not had as a reference. But it's so wonderful when I meet people who have not really experienced it. The big T trauma, as psychologists say. It is my case and so many people that I talk here. But I just love hearing that. And this is another beautiful vision for the world, for humanity, that we can kind of end the cycle of suffering, passing on pain and trauma to one another.
Right.
In a sense, it's a legacy of kindness, isn't it, Jim?
It is.
That we are looking at here. Kindness, respect, compassion, all those great things. So another question came to mind, besides the one that I have prepared here. Hearing about your mother, wow, it got me a little bit emotional there. She lost both of her parents. So how do you make sense of suffering and pain in general, especially the tragic ones, like this piece is the one that really gets to me, although I have not lost anyone, but it feels like it's so deep.
Yeah. And I think, when I look at and, the reason why we ultimately suffer is I think more so for learning experiences. And I don't want to be, overly toxic positivity here, right? I mean, pain is pain, right? And it's horrible. And I borrowed a phrase about pain, kind of around the whole concept of embracing the suck, right? And what do I mean by that? And it's something's happening to you. And the ways that we react to it is ultimately helps us either to get out of it or to continue to wallow in it. And in some situations, you can't get out of it because maybe it's a a terminal illness. But if it's not, or even if it is that, how do you live your life in a way that is, I guess more positive rather than woe is me? Again, the afflictions that everybody faces is different, and I've suffered my own challenges in my life. But I've chosen to say, hey, how do I take this? How do I strengthen myself? How do I then in turn turn this around and be something that potentially could be transformative to other folks that are suffering similar things for me? So I find pain to be necessary in life, something that is a growth opportunity. Certainly, we want to avoid it at all times, but it's impossible to do so because we are human, and it surrounds us, right? But one way to get over that is to have a community of people, as I'm getting to know you and the folks that you've communicated with and have built your relationships around. It's those folks that help us through everything. Is so important.
Gosh, tell me about it. Yeah, it's an open secret. Yes, I love meaningful connections. Yes. I know you have your own story. That's why you wrote a book. So the book is titled Unlimited Heart, How to Transform Your Pain into Purpose. So we have a lot to talk about that. But before, you just mentioned something that also caught my attention. So is it when you speak of learning to become more resilient, and transform our pain into purpose, is this something that we are actually born with, or do you believe that it's a practice, or some of us actually learn pretty quick, suffer one time, and we just learn how not to do it better for the rest of our lives?
Yeah. Well, I think it's both, right? So I think there is the propensity to learn how to be more resilient, but I also do think that some people are just born with the innate ability to suffer unbelievable traumas and still be able to resist. And so there was a question that was raised to me a few weeks ago, and how I deal with resiliency and what kind of a leader can you be. And I think in these instances of pain, and I often think of the mighty oak, but also I think of the reed in the water. And particularly, there are moments when you're going through your pain and your trauma that you have to be, a mighty oak and stand firm because you have to do what you need to do to survive. But then the reed, right? When you look at the reed as it ebbs and flows through the currents of water, you also have to be very flexible and to say, because with the oak can break, but the reed can as well, but the reed's more malleable. And so as you maintain that and you can sway with the currents of life, then you learn, I think, from that you can bounce back. And I think that's what the reed tells us is, oh, wow, I might have a significant wave coming across me, but once that settles, I can come back to where I was, or maybe I don't come back to the where I was. I come back to being something different, something better. And that's where I think the resiliency builds up. And so that's where I think, folks that are innately born for both of those, without question. But I think then as people get exposed to different things and depending on how they choose to respond to it, we'll be able to learn on how to become either more resilient or they would succumb to ultimately what is bothering them.
That is so true. It's a beautiful metaphor, though, the reed, right? It makes me think about being open. That's very important, right, in life, to be flexible. The word flexibility, it's a good word too, but for some reason I choose open, to be open, open-hearted, open-minded. That can change everything too, which is part of that, exactly what you said.
Yes.
So now it's the time to ask you about the story. So you wrote a book that is that tells the story of your life. So it's memoir, Unlimited Heart. I would love to know the meaning of the title, Unlimited. I was trying to kind of guess here, but please talk to me about why did you choose this specific title, and especially the word unlimited, and also the backstory of you a bit, so the listeners can can get a feel for it.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. So if I can, I'll get to the ultimately the reason around the title. And it's funny. I'm 50 years old, and somebody joked with me, like, "You're 50 years old and you're writing a memoir." Like, most memoirs, people think that, oh, you're done, right? Like, I'm 95 years old and
Yes.
I'm passing on. But the reason why I wrote this story, as I reflect upon, why I did it, it was because I felt that, and these are not my words, by the way. So I stole them from Steve Jobs. And Steve Jobs once did a commencement speech where he said, "You cannot look forward to the dots in your life that will come. You can only look in rears to the dots in life that have occurred." And it's those little dots, those little inflection points that ultimately, at the time, you have no idea why you're being exposed to these things. But it's those dots that ultimately make you into the person that you are. And so when I was 38 years old, I was launching a business, my first business, but I also was diagnosed with atrial fibrillation. So here comes the heart aspect of it. And at the age of 38, being diagnosed with atrial fibrillation is not a diagnosis that you really want, because there's some inherent challenges and risks that come with that.
Right.
But it wasn't until I wrote the book that I realized that the pieces and parts and those dots that Steve Jobs spoke of came early, very early on in my life. I dealt with, as a young child, had severe anxiety, and probably for about 2, 3, 4 years, in which I struggled with things, of not being as good of a person as I thought I should be, trying to hold up to some standards that I'm not even sure who even established those standards for me on what a good person was.
Right.
But I battled with that. But it ultimately was my heart, my desire, my love, as we talked earlier about my family and my connection with my family. And then I was like, I had to take the power of my heart to twist my mind around to say, you are not a bad person. You are a good person. You can overcome this, and this is how you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And so that's when, at that moment, again, I didn't know what it was preparing me for, but I said, if my heart and my mind are connected, I can do anything I want to do. And so that's where I started doing that. And then I grew up, obviously, college, everything else occurred. And then I hit the diagnosis of being struck with Afib. And then I looked at those 38 years prior to my diagnosis, and I said, that's why I went through those tough times, because now I know I can handle this, and I can handle this in a spiritual way, because I know that there's a reason why I'm going through this, that it's going to make me stronger. It's going to make me do something different and better in my life. That's going to help me and help, hopefully, more people in the world. And so the concept around the title of The Unlimited Heart was when I was coming out of one of my procedures. My cardiologist had just put in a pacemaker, and he said, well, at this point, we think we got you fixed, and your heart's not going to be able to stop. Obviously, not literally, but it won't stop. You have an unlimited heart. And I said, wow, that's awesome.
Yes.
Right. And so I love that concept, because I'm so driven by passion and purpose in my life, and that's all driven by my love for everything. And so I'm like, all right, if and when I write a book, I'm going to write it. I'm going to talk about having an unlimited heart and how you can tap into it.
Yes. Wow. That's beautiful. It's inspiring. What else can I say? I'm thinking about words here, but beautiful. Yes. Right. Because it's love, isn't it? That never ends. That's what I remember talking to somebody about death. We talk about everything here, but
Sure.
we're talking about death specifically. And somebody said, oh, I think I asked the question about, so when it ends, when somebody leaves the body, or then what remains then? And then she said, love never dies. It will always be there. So in a way, it's you're saying that unlimited heart, unlimited love. Yes, what's not to love about that? And in every way, we are thinking about the physical body, but that obviously will go one day, but the love will remain here. Is that the idea that you have of spirituality, to be love, or something else?
Oh, 100%. for me, my spirituality, born and raised a Catholic, and I firmly believe, when it's my time to go, that my spirit will live on in a better place. But I also believe that it's through my love and what I'm doing today, and I see what my parents did. When I think about love, right there, right. So my parents had 9 children, and then we all went out and we had, through love, wonderful children. And now I think my brother shared with me the other day, we're close to 75 offspring that just came from my parents' love.
Wow.
And from that alone,
wow.
my parents have passed in the last, 3 to 4 or 5 years here. But there isn't a day that I don't go by thinking about the love that they gave me, because that's what carries on their spirit. And so that's how I think, as long as we continue to generationally pass on those stories of the love, the kindness, also the challenges, then their memories exist forever. And then that love is continual and it won't stop.
Yes. Gosh, Jim, you made me think about children. So I never had children. I'm 47, and that won't happen anymore.
Yeah.
So for those who choose not to have children or can't for some reason, that love could be, let's say, transferred into something else. Because I love what I do. Connecting with people
Sure.
deeply, to me, is very important. So does it make a big difference in a sense for people who don't have children? Not comparing, of course, we don't want to do that. We all have our own journeys here, right?
Yeah.
But how do you feel about that? Like, what's the love that we, women and men without children, can leave you? The legacy of love that we can leave you in this world.
Yeah, and I think in looking at your history as well, I think one of the things that you'd stated, your chosen family, right? You have a picture of your husband and your dog,
Yeah.
and I think when you think about that, right? It's, if you don't have children, then you can go out and choose to impact other people's lives through volunteer work. I'm heavily involved in the Boys and Girls Club of America, and that's because those, again, here's kids that are heavily challenged with whatever life that they're living in. And that's another way to, you can go and not legitimately adopt all these children, but you can
Yes.
adopt a group of people and become mentors and volunteer through so many different ways in which, and I don't think children has to be necessarily somebody that's younger than you. I think of the connections that I've made so much with older folks, that who are alone. And my neighbor, unfortunately, just passed a few weeks ago from a battle with breast cancer. And she was, 18, 20 years older than me. But she looked to me as almost like a caretaker, and I loved it, right? And it was like she was a little child as she was getting ready to make her transition. And so I don't think age is an issue when it comes to who are your children, right? I think we can live beyond that. And I think that's the way for folks that don't have kids. Yeah, go and just share your love, your talents with folks that may not get the love from their own parents or whatever it is out there in the world, right? Because I think there's everybody's looking for somebody.
That's true. Yes, I love that. So, in a sense, love knows no boundaries. We can always share love in our own way, right? Especially with those who need the most. You just plant that seed here. I never thought about that. Maybe because I'm so busy with other things, but yes, that's a beautiful, vision. So let me go back to some of the questions that I had regarding spirituality and health. But before, a question about health in general. How do you define being healthy? What is to be a healthy person from your perspective?
Yeah, and I think I've always adopted the holistic approach to things. So for me, it's and I was a rower. I've always been an athlete in my life, and so I was a rower in college. And so for me, getting up in the morning in the quiet hours of the day, I usually get up around 5 o'clock in the morning every day, and as part of being healthy, I take moments of I don't formally meditate, but I take time just to think about gratitude and the things that I've been blessed with, and that's how I start my day. And then I get into my workouts, and then it's also, taking a look at just your general lifestyle. What are we exposing ourselves to? And I think obviously clearly what you have done in your life with fitness and all that stuff is amazing. But I think, and I wouldn't say that was extreme by any means, but for folks that are not into that, there's so many smaller, simple things that people can do is just stay moving.
Right.
And that's the one thing that I always try to do. It doesn't matter if I'm not lifting a weight. It's like, what did I do today to move my body? I also then take into consideration, what am I putting in my body, right?
Yes.
I think I was listening to one of your other podcasts the other day, and one of the young ladies was talking about, we're not in healthcare, we're in sick care, right?
Yes.
And so there's such a huge movement, and I'm a part of this, right? And I want to be a part of this lifestyle modification concept that we're building out as well. And I think that there's just really eating whole foods, right? Like, it's you really sit up and when you look at some of the things, when you look at a wrapper, and it's like, holy cow, there's like 75 ingredients. Why, when all I want is, just have some cashews and some fruit, and then you're much better, right?
Yes.
So, I think health is all of that, but then I think back to what we were just talking about is the spirituality, right? And again, for me, having connectedness in a church community is really important for me. And then I know folks that obviously don't, and I know spirituality in the United States is increasing, but I also know that organized religion is decreasing. So it's like, but there's also a huge reliance now, and people are starting to come back. I was statistically listening to another podcast the other day, and they're saying people are coming back to this because there's a longing, I think, for some connectedness, because a lot of what happens in the world, and I'm not a huge social media guy, but I think people don't have real connections. They have 200,000 friends on Facebook or whatever it is, and it's like, that's not real. And so I think when we think about our holistic approach, it's moving the body, it's taking care of the body with what we consume, it's connecting and finding some grounding spiritually as well with friends, family, and other people.
Yes. Of course, I expected in a way this answer from you. So, because I read before, so holistic, yes. And I love the term that you use. I never seen it this way. You say holistic work, health, faith, family, life balance.
Yeah.
You include everything. So is that how you define success as well, Jim? Do you have a different definition for what success is?
Well, I mean, it depends. Yeah, I mean, there's different categories of success, right? But I think if you look at an individual perspective, I think success is whatever people want to define it for. For me, success. I'll go back to how we started this conversation: is have I raised my two boys to be good men? As my oldest just turned 16 the other day, and I said, "You are my greatest creation." I obviously didn't tell my youngest son that Marcus, my oldest, is my greatest creation, but they are, right. And if I can raise them to be good men and good people, then that to me is success. Everything else can fall by the wayside. The other aspect for me from a success perspective is because as my wife often tells me, she's like, you're always so driven by purpose. And for me, it's just to make that connection and to improve people's lives in some way, shape, or form. And so that's the journey that I'm on now, that I've crossed that threshold of the big 5-0. So.
Yes. I mean, what's not to love about your manifestation, your expression in this life? It's truly beautiful, driven by all these very important, I would say, principles. So there's something about that, and it's interesting. It's not easy for people like me. Hasn't been easy to know right from wrong, not in extreme ways, but not being able to trust my own intuition. That was one. And that's because of trauma. So it's fascinating to meet also human beings who are very clear since the beginning in a way of their journey here, and they establish themselves in those very important
Yeah.
principles. So I
Well,
love that.
and I want to, chime in a little bit on that because, right, we talked about the dots in our life, those inflection
Yes.
points, right?
Yeah.
And some of the bigger inflection points make it look really, really clear. Like I was doing a keynote address the other day, and I said, wow, if you looked at my slide, my life was pretty easy and really clean cut, but it's everything in between is an absolute mess, right? And that's okay.
Right.
It's just like, how do you use that mess to get you to the next step, right? And so
Yes.
your journey, my journey, I mean, it's
Yes.
not, and this is why we have to practice it every day, whether it's your faith or your spirituality or working out. It's like you always have to do it every day because we are human, right? And so we want to go back to what's easy, and sometimes what's easy is, again, maybe what's wrong, and not,
Right.
morally might not be the right thing to do. And so
Right.
that's why we just have to continue to practice. But I think that the other aspect for me around this is making sure that you always have the ability to forgive yourself for not being perfect.
Yes.
And that's okay. And I try to do that every night because you set out the day is, hey, what can I accomplish today? To make sure that I don't want to always say, let's follow a categorical box of like, here's my to-do list for today. But here are those things that are going to help me to get to the place I want to be. But at the end of the day, I'll sit back, and before I put my head on the pillow, I'll say, okay, I did all of those things. I'm okay with it. I'm done. I'm going to shut my eyes. I'm going to rest. I'm going to rejuvenate, and tomorrow's a new day. And we'll go out and tackle something else. So it's that forgiveness that we then don't beat each other or beat yourself up about that you weren't perfect, because nobody's perfect ever.
Wow. That's another very insightful message and reminder for all of us, right? Perfectionism, it leads to mental health issues. It's been my case, stress, anxiety, in everything else in between. So that's another beautiful message from you. Yes. And speaking of practices, so yes, I have heard recently somebody said here that good and bad habits are contagious. Basically what you said, but with in different words.
Yeah.
And it's true. So what practices would you suggest in general that for a daily practice for all of us? What are the most important, let's say, aspects of life that we should be attentive on a daily basis?
Yeah, I think honestly, it's talking to yourself, right? And why I say this, and it's not enough just to say, hey, I'm going to think about something. I'm talking like you need to verbally like speak out loud. And here's an example. One of the things that I talked about in the last few weeks is how discipline equals freedom. And so what does that mean? Well, if you're disciplined, then you're going to be free. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be free to do whatever you want. But if you want a healthy life, if you want your body to be in a good working order, you have to be disciplined. And so I say this, I scream this out because my weakness is dark chocolate. So, if I go into the pantry and it's like, okay, there it is, right? Like I could eat the whole thing.
Yes.
So then I'll say out loud, discipline equals freedom. And so I'll put that away and I'll walk away from it. And so it's those gentle reminders that I say out loud to myself, like, okay, this is what I'm striving to do. I got to remind myself to do it. And so I think the way we communicate to yourselves is so important. And so I think that's the practice everybody should have, right? It's that daily affirmation, so to speak, right? But it's your daily guide to say, what is your purpose? Why are you doing what you're doing, right? And for me, I'll think about this, right? It's like, for me, working out is not necessarily about me looking good today. It's about how am I going to be able to manage my life when I'm 60 or when I'm 70? Because what I do today is going to impact where I'm at when I'm 60 and 70. And I want those years to be just as good as my 50s. And so it's like, that's the discipline that's required in order for me to enjoy and have a free life from disease, hopefully at the age of 60s and 70s, right? So that's the way I look at it.
Mm. Yes, I love the concept of freedom. I just love that for some reason. That's the goal, really, for me here in this lifetime. Not sure if there are other lifetimes, but
Yeah.
there's something about freedom. And I don't know, we have also different ideas of what freedom is. But for me, it would be something like being already what I'm looking for. If I can end this constant pursuit to be better, to do more, have more, then um, then I can have the sense of calm and peace in the moment, in each
Yeah.
moment. So there's something about that concept. I know it's easy said than done,
Yeah.
but I love that idea, though. It's a spiritual one, too. I'm a student of Vedanta, which is a Hindu philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
So they talk a lot about that, being already feeling and knowing that you're whole, that you're complete, that you are unlimited, using your beautiful word.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's something about that. I know this is a different conversation, right, for another podcast interview.
That'd be great.
And going back to what you said about dark chocolate, I was laughing here, not trying not to laugh too hard. Dark chocolate, I was thinking it's better than being milk or white chocolate. So it's not
Yes.
such a bad habit.
Right. That's a good point. All right, so you're giving me permission then. I'm gonna go raid my my pantry.
Yes. No, I'm kidding. No, don't do that. I do love dark chocolate too, but I don't have always have it vegan. There's something about milk that I don't like. I don't really like milk. So
Mhm.
it's always vegan. So I feel that's a little bit better,
Yeah.
but only a small piece a day, not even every day.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sugar is a big one. It seems like I heard that's highly addictive, isn't it?
Sugar? Oh gosh,
Yes,
yes.
in
Yeah.
general.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
maybe that's why a lot of people are addicted to it.
Very
Oh,
much so. Very much so.
yes. You were about to say something, Jim.
No,
you were about to
I
say?
think just, around as people are pursuing, what it is that they do on a daily basis, it goes again back to that self-talk.
Yeah.
But then it's also, talking to themselves again at the end of the day to remind themselves that, okay, yeah, we made a mistake. I had that piece of chocolate. It's
Yes.
okay,
Yeah.
right? Tomorrow's another day, right?
Mm.
And I think too, right? And this helps. And you brought up the concept of, anxiety and challenges and things like that. I think we all suffer with some level of anxiety.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
one of the things that I find so relieving and freeing, building on the word of freedom,
Yeah.
is if you truly believe in things around like seizing the day for the most that it is just this. If this is all we have, if you have just the next 24
Right.
hours, what are you going to do?
Right.
Because tomorrow's not promised.
Right.
So then let's just go out and be the best you possibly can be today. Seize that day and whatever way it is. But also the other aspect of this is you have to accept, if you're really going to truly enjoy and seize the day, you have to accept your mortality.
Right.
You have to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to die someday. And that could be morbid, or that could be, oh my gosh, I've got greatness in front of me. Like, here's an opportunity to do great things. And this was a concept that came up to me a few weeks ago when I was doing some research, and I love this concept. I can't think of the woman that wrote this, but she wrote that as long as you're grateful and you've got your brain is full of gratitude, anxiety cannot exist, because the brain can't manage two different thoughts at the same time.
Right.
And I'm not a psychologist, but I just thought to myself, holy cow, wow, that is such a strong statement. Because I know when I'm going down a rabbit hole of, okay, this could be some dark thoughts going in my head. And then a minute I flip over to, let me think about something that I'm grateful for. I can almost feel, and just while we're speaking now, I can actually feel that energy run through my body right now. I'm thinking, okay, that is so powerful to do that. And again, not a psychologist, so if folks need help, go out and get professional help. But I've tried to do this practice on a daily basis too, where I start to worry about things and then I'm like, I don't need to. And that's really helped me to calm and fear, release some of those fears that I have around things either that happened or things that won't happen, that I don't even know what is to come, is just to kind of let it go.
Right. That's a big one. Fear. Yeah, in a way, all these negative thought patterns, they come from fear. It's very, in psychology they have found that to be true. Actually, in the spiritual realm too, in
Yeah.
teachings, I see that to be true. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Love and fear, they cannot coexist, and gratitude would be more under the obviously under the umbrella of love.
Mm-hmm.
Kindness and all those beautiful joy, peace. Yes. Gosh, I want to ask you a question about purpose. So, your book again is titled Unlimited Heart: How to Transform Your Pain into Purpose. What is a good way of knowing when we are living our purpose? What does it feel like?
Yeah. So for me, so I wrote the book with the intention that this was my purpose. I was going to write the book, but not only just write a book and share my story. While that is helpful, I'm actually building another business on coming out of it, and it's called Unlimited Heart, Health, and Wellness, and that is my purpose. So that now becomes the vehicle. And so, how does that feel? It feels amazing. Because you're actually putting a vehicle together to say, all right, I'm going to go do this now. And so the intention around that is to help folks that are suffering with atrial fibrillation. So Unlimited Heart, Health, and Wellness is around helping other people that struggle with the disease and how we can empower them to be their best and to seize their days so that they can hopefully relieve them of their affliction that they've had from their disease. So to me, that feels like a jolt of energy, because once you figure out, I mean, you're kicking your heels up, right? I mean, I'll flip the table back to you. Like when you figured out what you wanted to do, and speaking prior to this podcast, you were saying, I love talking to people. I mean, this is my thing, right? So
Yes.
So how does that feel, right? So that's how it feels, right? It's you're almost like back to the sugar thing. You're like a kid in a candy store. You're like, holy cow, look at this, right? Oh my gosh, the world is in front of me, and I can do so many things because I can affectionately and purposely talk about it to people. And when you do it, people feel it. And they're like, okay, this guy, this girl, they're for real. Like they're doing this, and that, I think that's exciting to me.
Right. Yes. Yeah. That's it. It is. It is a feeling, of course, in the body. But there's something also about, for me, has been it has to be a feeling of peace. It goes back to that idea of freedom. It's almost like I've done already what I came here to do, in a way. So it feels very much like that, complete, whole. This is it. So whatever happens, it's just a gift, in a way.
It is, and I'd like people to think about too, because I know this works for me. Is when I think about, because everything's a challenge, right? So building another business, or even what you've built out to build this great audience that you've created, there's a lot of work, right? And a lot of effort. And some people might get scared by that. But what drives me and drives that desire for me to keep going is I think about going back to something that I've already done, and then I capture that feeling, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I would never do that again, right? So then it's like, okay, perfect. So so now I know the converse of what I'm feeling now is like, I don't want to go back. Like, okay, send me in this direction, whichever curvy road this is going to be, I'm willing to take it.
Yes, that's a very good point. Then I love the way you say that too, because in a way, you're making this whole journey kind of playful. And I love that you have children, and I can imagine so many nephews and all these kids around. But the young people, are they able to understand these ideas, Jim, of purpose and pain and transformation? I would love to know.
Yeah, no, and it's been great, right? And I live away. I live 9 hours away from most of my family, but I stay really, really connected with my own siblings, and also to my nieces and nephews. But when you chat on the phone, you're not always telling about all the gory details of what's going on, and so pretty much all of them have read my book now, and they're like, "Holy cow, Uncle Jim! Like, wow! Like we had no idea." right? And I think they see that, and as they're growing up in their lives, they're like, wow, okay, I kind of want to do what you've done, right?
Wow.
That's really neat. And so I think they're seeing it. And then my siblings are all wildly successful in their own way as well. So they see their parents living it out in great ways too. But yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun having those deeper conversations with them. And some of them we go back almost to the level of depth that you have. We talk like 30 minutes about spirituality, and that's sometimes my older niece, who I was 13 years old when she was born, and she's 37. And so she's a full-grown woman living her life, and it's just being able to have those cool conversations about fear and love and desire and just purpose in life is great.
Yes. Oh, I can imagine. Gosh, yeah, I live for those things. So in a way, let me see if I understood that, because that would be, that's profound too, that the young people are actually looking for role models, people who are not just saying things, but they are not just delivering messages, but they are living the message or being the message.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? With
Yeah,
my words?
100%. Because again, kids are looking for depth, and it's not just hey, what do I watch on my phone? A 30-second snippet on one of the social media platforms. It's when they truly engage and they connect with people on a deeper level that is outside of their comfort level, is when they really see, like, oh my gosh, I can see it. And it's almost one of these things. And again, I'm stealing a phrase from somebody else, but it's that heads up mentality. Like, let's take our phones away from our devices and see the world around us and see how beautiful this is, right? And the connections that we can make with people verbally talking to somebody as opposed to digitally communicating with somebody.
Right. I hope that's changing. It's interesting how we came from no technology to technology. Now it's kind of finding the balance, isn't it? It all
is
about that. Life kind of, it's which I connect to wisdom. I think that's what wisdom really is. Going kind of have those experiences that we have, the good and the bad, and then kind of learning those lessons and living in the middle in a way.
That's right.
Knowing how to stay in between. So going back, we're almost at the end, but I want to go back to the work that you got. So your book, Unlimited Heart, How to Transform Your Pain into Purpose, is available on Amazon. And it's also, I wrote it down here, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, BAM, Books A Million, also Bookshop, Amazon UK, Amazon Canada. So that's also on your website, unlimitedheartbook.com. And you're also on LinkedIn at James Kaveney, hopefully pronounced. I'll have that just clickable. It'll be easier that way.
That's great.
And then your company, so Unlimited Heart Health and Wellness. Talk to me for a moment more about that. So this is for people, for Afib patients only?
Correct. And it's specifically for Afib patients because I am one. And but this can be used across the board for any disease state, right? And so the big thing for the Unlimited Heart Health and Wellness is to be able to set up a system, right? Because you'll appreciate this. If somebody says to somebody, well, you have a disease, you need to lose weight. Okay, well, how do I do that, right? Yeah. And so goals are not enough. You have to have a system in place. And so this is becoming a digital platform that is a system for folks to be able to address their diet, their exercise, their mindfulness, and lastly, their education. So it's those 4 pillars that we are bringing to the table for atrial fibrillation patients so they can come onto this platform, which is, you would think there is a unified platform for education, and there is a lot of information out there. American Heart Association is amazing. StopAfib.org is an amazing site for atrial fibrillation, but it's not comprehensive. And so we're building this platform so that it is comprehensive, and so be a one-stop shop for folks coming and being able to take over their lifestyle management, because it's through losing weight and getting stronger that you ultimately can actually reverse, in some cases, your own diagnosis with atrial fibrillation, because the connectivity between obesity, diabetes, hypertension, you name it, and AFib is high. And so if we can change our lifestyles, then we can free ourselves from these chronic diseases that are coming around.
Right. What a wonderful idea. I love creativity, especially when it's used for these things to help others based on our own experience. It's just very compassionate too. That's the spiritual component there that I can clearly see. Thank you so much, Jim.
You're welcome.
Again,
Thank you
for doing what you do. A quick question about AFib. Does it affect also children? Or only adults?
So it doesn't, right? And there are some rare cases, but predominantly AFib is a disease over 50. So now I was obviously 38 years old when I was diagnosed, but there is a propensity for people that are really into extreme sports. So I was a rower. Rowing is probably one of the most extreme sports you can do, because if you think about it, for me, when I was in college, I was pushing, and this is where I started experiencing my AFib when I was in college. But of course, I ignored that because I was 20, 22 years old, and it's like, nothing can stop me. I'm invincible. But it's when you push your heart to such an extreme level for so many hours throughout the day, and rowing tends to do that, then your heart wants to kind of stay at that level. And so you can actually transform your heart into AFib. So they're seeing a higher number of extreme athletes who you might see running down the road, wonderfully fit individuals, drop over. And you'd be like, well, why did they die? They're always in fit, But no, in some cases, too much exercise is not a good thing. So it goes back to the moderation. So that's where we're seeing some younger patients coming up. But AFib in general is the number one arrhythmia in the world. In the United States, there's over 6 million people that have it. And by 2030, there's going to be close to 12.2 million patients with AFib. So it is not slowing down. So it is growing. And that's not a good thing. So if we can tackle lifestyle modification of those risk factors, we can hopefully reverse the tide of the growing AFib epidemic that it is.
Wow. Yes. Education's key here. Awareness via education. We need to know. And speaking of that, I have to ask you this question. One of my guided questions here. What are the warning signs, the early ones for AFib?
Yeah. So, here's some interesting statistics, right? So 40% of all people that have AFib will show up asymptomatically. So they might not have any symptoms whatsoever. Yeah. And for instance, as you go to the doctor's office because you have a sore throat or something, and invariably they do take your blood pressure, and they might say, "Hey, you have AFib." What? I didn't know that. And so there's the asymptomatic, which is that. Now, for me, my challenges were I was passing out. So I would literally be getting a very elevated heart rate. I was getting heart rates of 240 beats per minute. So that's obviously not normal. So if you get elevated heart rates or shortness of breath while you're climbing stairs, a lot of these things, and it's like, that doesn't make sense because that doesn't correlate with anything else going on in my life. Go get checked. The other aspect too is know your triggers. There are triggers, and in some cases that is alcohol is a big trigger for atrial fibrillation. For me, it certainly was. So if I drank a glass of, had a mixed drink with vodka in it, I would immediately go into my AFib. And so then you just learn to not do it, because if you can control that goes back to the lifestyle modification. If you can control it, then you can potentially stop it. So it's just ask those questions of the, what are the underlying risk factors for me if they go to their cardiologist? Is there a structural malformation in my heart that is causing this? Because that happens too. So it's one, is there something anatomically wrong with me? Two, is there something wrong with my lifestyle? And then ultimately, what can you do to overcome that? And there's a lot of great services out there to reverse this AFib disease if folks get the right treatment early on.
Yes. Thank you so much, Jim. That's very helpful. Yeah.
You're welcome.
I'm listening very closely here too. I heard somebody say here on the podcast, it was an interesting, I don't remember his name, is it Dr. Michael Binder. Yeah, he's a psychiatrist and also a spiritual teacher. And then he said something amazing. He said that relaxation, being relaxing the brain and the body, can reverse any kind of disease.
Yes.
So he was big into relaxation. He kept talking about that over
Yeah.
and over and over again throughout the conversation. Just being
Yeah.
able to relax in between if you're feeling stressed, being aware of it and going back to that rest kind of state.
100%. And the vagus nerve, the vagus nerve
Yeah.
has such an impact on our overall systemic health, right? And so, I practice yoga a couple times a week,
Yeah.
just to keep my mind, my body limber. And that's, for me, it's a very relaxing time. But yeah, there's the mindfulness trainings. There's a lot of research out there that has been done to show that mindfulness training does have an impact on the vagus nerve, which then in turn has an impact on atrial fibrillation as well.
Right. That's wonderful to know. I knew you were aware of that, obviously, that piece. So thank you so much again, Jim. I could talk to you forever. The truth is. So we will say goodbye for now. But before that, would you like to add anything that you left unsaid or read a passage in your book?
I'm just really grateful for the opportunity to jump onto your platform and share my story. I think the key things that we want to get across from writing this book is that it's purposeful. It's with the intent to share my story of challenges so that other people can feel motivated to do so. But the other aspect of this too, and this is just a plug for the book, is because of my connection with the Boys and Girls Club. So for every single book that we sell, we give proceeds to my local Boys and Girls Club so that those children can benefit from my story. And so back to your overall premise is spreading the love. And for me, that's how I do it. It's not about making money. It's about how much good we can do in this world. And that's my purpose right now.
Oh my God. What's not to love about that? Yes. Thank you so much for saying that too, adding that here. Yeah. So the book, Unlimited Heart, How to Transform Your Pain into Purpose. It's on Amazon. I'll have the link here, the clickable link, and your website as well, unlimitedheartbook.com. Everything will be on the podcast notes. Thank you so much again for your beautiful presence, Jim, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Valeria.
Bye for now.
Take care.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about Jim Caveney and his work, please visit unlimitedheartbook.com. and connect with him on LinkedIn at James Caveney.
To learn more about this podcast, please visit fitforjoy.org/podcast. Thank you again for listening, and bye for now.